On Memorial Day, everyone celebrated him. Everyone called him a hero, a decorated veteran, a proud patriot, a man who served with honor. But I knew the truth. That night, in the shadows of his home, he showed me who he really was. And for years, I kept his secret until today. Because some heroes don't wear medals, they wear scars. And this is the story I should never have told, but I know it can heal someone. If you've ever been silenced by someone the world adored, listen to my story. Subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're watching from. Memorial Day was always complicated for me. While everyone waved flags and praised heroes, I clenched my fists, forcing a smile no one questioned. Because the truth, real monsters don't hide in the dark. They stand in broad daylight, polished and decorated while the rest of the world applauds. My name is Sofia Almeida. I'm a journalist now, but at 17, I was just a girl who believed in duty, honor, and the lies my family told to protect a monster. My Tio Eva, Captain Eduardo, wasn't just a war hero to our small town. He was a predator, and what he did to me that night wasn't just a violation. It was a theft. He stole my voice, my trust, my right to feel safe in my own skin. For years, I buried it, because that's what we do, right? We swallow the pain to keep the peace. We tell ourselves it's not that bad. We lie awake at night wondering, what if no one believes me? But here's what they don't tell you about secrets. They're chains. And the moment I realized I wasn't alone, that other women in our town carried the same weight, the same shame, something inside me snapped. This isn't just my story. It's the story of every person who's ever been told to stay quiet for the greater good. It's about the moment you realize silence isn't peace, it's permission. And I was done giving him mine. Growing up in a military family, I was taught that loyalty was everything. Questioning authority, that was betrayal. So when Captain Eduardo, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who pinned medals on my childhood dresses, started lingering too long, touching me in ways that made my stomach twist, I convinced myself I'd imagined it. Until the night he cornered me after a family BBQ, his breath thick with whiskey, his hands accidentally brushing where they shouldn't. "You're so special, Sofia," he whispered. But no one would understand our little secret. And like a good soldier, I saluted. I buried it. I became the perfect daughter, the perfect student, the perfect liar. Because the alternative, destroying my family's reputation, shattering the illusion of the hero everyone loved. But here's the thing about trauma, it doesn't stay buried. It festers. It leaks out in panic attacks before family gatherings, in flinching when men raise their voices, in dating guys who treated me like an afterthought. Because somewhere deep down, I believed that's all I deserved. It took me 13 years to understand. The shame was never mine to carry. The moment that changed everything, when I saw him at last year's Memorial Day ceremony, surrounded by starry-eyed recruits, his hand resting a little too low on a young reporter's back. The way she stiffened it was like looking in a mirror, and that's when I knew silence isn't just a choice. It's a weapon he used to keep us all in line. So this is me breaking the chain. Not just for me, but for every woman who's ever choked on the words, "Me too." For every person who's been gaslit into thinking their pain isn't bad enough to count. This story isn't about revenge, it's about rebellion. The kind that starts when one person refuses to play their part in the lie anymore, because the truth, it doesn't just set you free. It lights a fuse, and I'm done watching from the shadows. The moment I saw him again, my body reacted before my mind could. Ketchup. My hands went cold. My throat tightened like a noose. There he was, Captain Eduardo, standing in the center of the Memorial Day parade, bathed in golden sunlight, shaking hands like a politician. The town had rolled out the red carpet for their favorite war hero. And me, I was supposed to smile, nod, and report on this, like it was just another feel-good story. Like my skin wasn't crawling. Like I hadn't spent the last decade trying to forget the way his fingers dug into my wrist that night, his voice slurred with bourbon and entitlement. "You'll never tell, will you, Sofia? Who'd believe you over me?" But here's the thing about trauma, it doesn't care about appropriate timing. It doesn't give a damn about professionalism. Because as I adjusted my camera lens, I saw her. A young reporter couldn't have been older than 22, louder, too loud at Eduardo's jokes, her posture stiffening when he accidentally brushed against her waist. The way her smile didn't reach her eyes, the way she glanced around, searching for an exit, God, I knew that look. I'd practiced it in the mirror for years, and right then the ground tilted beneath me. This wasn't just my past haunting me, it was happening again, to someone else. While the crowd cheered, while the brass band played Stars and Stripes Forever, while children waved little plastic flags, he was doing it again. I should have walked away. That's what the old Sofia would have done, the Sofia, who still believed keeping quiet was the same thing as being strong. But then Eduardo leaned down, whispering something in the girl's ear that made her flinch. And something inside me, something feral and furious, woke up. Because this wasn't just a story anymore. This was a reckoning. And for the first time in 13 years, I wasn't afraid. I was angry. The kind of anger that doesn't burn out. The kind that builds empires or burns them to the ground. The smell of coffee beans couldn't mask the tension as I slid into the booth across from Louisa. Her hands trembled around her cup just like mine used to. "You looked uncomfortable back there," I said carefully. Her laugh was too sharp, too quick. "Oh no, Captain Eduardo's just friendly." But the way her voice cracked on friendly sent a chill down my spine. I leaned in, lowering my voice. "Louisa, when he accidentally touches you, does he also say it's your fault for being too pretty to resist?" Her coffee cup clattered against the saucer. That's when I saw the flash of recognition in her eyes. The sickening relief of someone realizing they're not crazy, not alone. He texts me sometimes," she whispered, "late at night. Says I remind him of." Her voice died. She didn't need to finish. I knew because we all remind him of someone. His appetite doesn't discriminate. Later, at my grandmother's old house, dust motes danced in the sunlight as I pulled her leather-bound diary from the attic. The spine cracked open to a page torn in half, but the remaining words screamed, "Eduardo's secret will die with me. God forgive my silence." My blood turned to ice. How many of us were there? How many good girls had he weaponized against themselves? That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about me or Louisa. This was generational. A poison past. Down through whispered warnings to stay sweet and not make waves, but waves are all I could think about as I drove to the newspaper office the next morning, because some secrets, they don't deserve to stay buried. And I was done being part of the silence that kept them alive. Asterisk, the newsroom buzzed around me as I pulled up Eduardo's military records. Decorated hero, community pillar, and then buried in a 1992 personnel file single redacted line. Subject reprimanded for inappropriate conduct with civilian during deployment. My fingers flew across the keyboard, digging deeper. 3 more redactions. Always hushed up, always handled internally, always another young woman left to pick up the pieces. Meanwhile, the town was preparing his Lifetime Achievement Award. The irony tasted like bile. That's when my editor dropped the assignment sheet on my desk. "Sophia, you're covering Eduardo's award ceremony tomorrow? Human interest angle, local hero's legacy." The universe had a sick sense of humor. Or maybe it was, giving me a front row seat to justice. Asterisk, that night, Louisa texted me a screenshot. Eduardo's latest message, "You'll be at my ceremony, right where that red dress? I'll save you a seat." My vision went white with rage. "Not again. Not another one," I typed back. Delete nothing. Screenshot everything. And Louisa. Tomorrow, we changed the story. The applause for Eduardo hadn't even faded when my heels clicked against the wooden stage, steps too loud, like gunshots in the sudden silence. My press badge swung from my neck as I took the microphone from his hand, our fingers brushing. For a split second, his smile froze when he recognized me. That's when I saw the flicker of fear in his eyes. The same fear he'd planted in me 13 years ago. The crowd murmured. MY editor was frantically signaling me to stop, but the microphone was live. And so was I, ladies and gentlemen, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. We're here today to honor heroes, but real heroes don't need medals to prove their worth. Eduardo's hand twitched toward me. I stepped back. Real heroes don't whisper threats to 17-year-old girls in darkened hallways. Gasps rippled through the audience. Someone dropped a program. They don't text young reporters at midnight demanding secrecy. Louisa stood up in the third row. Phone raised, showing the crowd Eduardo's messages. And they certainly, I continued, gripping the mic so hard my knuckles turned white. Don't spend decades using their uniform as a shield while leaving wreckage behind them. Asterisk, that's when the miracle happened. Mrs. Henderson, the 82-year-old librarian, rose from her seat. He made me fire his housekeeper in '98, she announced, voice cracking. Said she was tempting him. Then a woman in a veteran's jacket stood. My daughter quit ROTC because of him. One by one, like dominoes, women stood. No shouts, no chaos, just silent, furious proof. Eduardo's face purpled. This is slander, he barked, reaching for the mic. But the mayor, his longtime friend, pulled it away. The sound system screeched as the microphone hit the floor, amplifying the one thing Eduardo never wanted heard, the sound of his power crumbling. Asterisk later, they'd say what I did was brave, but courage had nothing to do with it. This was a reckoning, kind that starts when one woman stops swallowing her truth and lets it erupt like a geyser, drenching everyone in the uncomfortable, undeniable reality. As Eduardo stormed out, tripping over the American flag banner, I locked eyes with a teenage girl in the back. Her hands were clamped over her mouth, tears streaming. She didn't need to say a word. I knew. We all knew. This wasn't an ending. It was a detonation, and the aftershocks would rewrite everything. They stripped Eduardo's medals 6 weeks later. Not because of my speech, but because of the avalanche it unleashed. Louisa's screenshots became evidence. Mrs. Henderson's testimony about the fired housekeeper triggered a military audit. And when the journalist from the state paper dug deeper, they found 3 more redacted reports from bases overseas. The army cut him loose fast, their golden boy tarnished beyond repair. But justice? That came from the whispers in town. The way his old buddies crossed the street to avoid him, how the VFW hall removed his portrait. The real punishment wasn't. The court-martialate was becoming exactly what he feared, invisible. I launched Real Heroes the day after his discharge. The first episode featured a voice-distorted interview with Elle. Louisa, shaking but relentless. Then came others. A nurse he'd cornered in a supply room. A cousin's college roommate. Our logo? A broken medal. Within months, we were flooded with stories not just about Eduardo, but about pastors, coaches, CEOs. Turns out, monsters love uniforms. And survivors. We recognize each other in the dark. Asterisk at next year's Memorial Day ceremony. They didn't invite me. They invited Maria, the housekeeper's daughter. She spoke about resilience in a trembling voice, gripping the same microphone I'd dropped. The crowd cried, even the mayor. And when she finished, a 19-year-old cadet handed her a single white rose. No flags, no fanfare, just one woman telling her truth, and a new generation finally listening. Asterisk for years. I thought silence made me strong, that swallowing my truth was some twisted form of courage. But the day I took that microphone, I didn't just speak for myself, I exhaled 13 years of suffocated rage in one seismic breath. The Sophia who once jumped at slamming doors now records podcast episodes with survivors at 2 a.m. Her studio lit only by the glow of her laptop. The girl who blushed when spoken to now stares down congressmen during live interviews. Her voice steady as she asks, "How many more medals will you award to predators?" My family came around mostly. Mom still flinches when someone mentions the incident, but she sends my podcast links to her church group. Dad, career military man, quietly donated to my legal fund for survivors. But reconciliation doesn't mean forgiveness. I'll never make peace with what Eduardo did. Only with my right to burn his legacy to the ground and plant gardens in the ashes. Asterisk the real transformation, recognizing that my shame was never mine to carry. That first night after the ceremony, I dreamt of 17-year-old Sophia not as a victim, but as the girl who survived. When I woke, I finally deleted his voicemails I'd kept for proof, because the proof was in Maria's speech, in Louisa's promotion to investigative reporter, in the 437 unread DMs from listeners who heard my story and whispered back, "Me too." Asterisk now, when Memorial Day rolls around, I don't see flags. I see faces, the ones who stood when I spoke, the ones still finding their voice. And the little girl in the crowd last year who tugged her mother's sleeve and asked, "Can heroes be girls too?" Yes, baby. Especially the broken ones who put themselves back together sharper. If my story resonated with you even in silence, I hope you know you're not alone. Sometimes the hardest truths we carry are the ones we never say out loud. But healing always begins with acknowledging them, even in silence. Share your experience in the comments. If you feel ready, subscribe to the channel. And keep watching this video that's playing on your screen.